Did you know manipulators don't actually want your love? They want your reaction. They poked you, provoked you, misread you on purpose, changed their tone, withheld affection, then acted innocent after hurting you. And the whole time, they expected you to explode. They expected the long paragraph, the emotional breakdown, the angry phone call, the desperate need to be understood. But this time, you didn't give it to them. You went numb. Not because you stopped having a heart. Not because you became cold or cruel. But because something inside you finally said, I am not feeding this anymore. And that was the moment the cord snapped. See, dark energy can survive your anger. It can survive your tears. It can even survive your confusion. But it cannot survive your complete emotional detachment. Because when you stop reacting, they lose the mirror that made them feel powerful. They lose the stage. They lose the emotional meal they kept coming back for. And now they're starving. Spiritually starving. Restless in rooms they used to feel comfortable in. Checking your silence like it's secretly a message. Watching your peace from a distance like it's an attack against them. Wondering why the same tricks that used to pull you back suddenly feel useless. And listen, this is not revenge. This is spiritual law. When you stop absorbing chaos, chaos has to return to the sender. When you stop carrying their projections, they're finally forced to sit alone with themselves. And when a chosen one truly closes the door, heaven does not ask them to reopen it just because the person outside became uncomfortable. You didn't lose power when you got quiet. You found it. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand why your silence became the loudest thing they've ever heard. Number 1, the illusion of their power. Here's the brutal truth. They thought they controlled you because they knew how to trigger you. They knew which words made your chest tighten. They knew which silence made you overthink. They knew which little change in tone would make you start questioning yourself. And for a while, they mistook your sensitivity for weakness. But they were wrong. They didn't have power because they were powerful. They had power because you were still participating. You were still trying to explain your heart to someone who benefited from pretending not to understand it. You were still trying to bring peace into a situation that was designed to keep you emotionally spinning. You were still hoping that if you said it clearly enough, gently enough, honestly enough, they would finally see what they were doing. But they already saw it. That's the part that hurts. They knew. They knew when they pushed too far. They knew when they crossed the line. They knew when they made you feel small, ignored, guilty, or crazy for reacting to pain they created. They just counted on your love to keep you available. They counted on your empathy to keep you explaining. They counted on your conscience to keep you coming back to the table. And then one day you stopped. No announcement, no dramatic speech, no final performance to prove you were done. You just pulled your energy back. You stopped feeding the conversation. You stopped giving them emotional access. You stopped letting every jab become a courtroom where you had to defend your soul. And that is when the illusion broke. Because manipulation only works when the chosen one keeps responding. It needs your attention. It needs your nervous system. It needs your urgency. It needs you checking, replying, defending, fixing, begging, chasing, or proving. The moment you stop doing that, the entire machine shuts down. They can send the message. You don't bite. They can throw the bait. You don't swim toward it. They can act cold, act wounded, act offended, act confused, act like you're the problem, and you still don't move. Now watch this. That calmness terrifies them more than your anger ever did. Your anger gave them something to twist. Your tears gave them something to use. Your long explanations gave them something to dissect, mock, deny, or weaponize. But your silence gives them nothing. No handle, no doorway, no emotional thread to pull. And for someone who survived by pulling your strings, that feels like losing control of the whole room. They thought they were the puppet master. But the truth is, you were the power source. You were the warmth. You were the attention. You were the one keeping the connection alive with your hope, your forgiveness, your patience, your willingness to try one more time. So when you unplugged, everything went dark for them. Let that sink in. The dynamic did not collapse because they changed. It collapsed because you stopped supplying it. You stopped clapping for the performance. You stopped attending the trial. You stopped volunteering your peace as payment for their comfort. And now they're confused because the version of you they built their strategy around no longer exists. The old you would have explained. The old you would have cried. The old you would have felt guilty for needing distance. The old you would have tried to prove you weren't mean, bitter, selfish, or difficult. But the new you understands something sacred. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Not every provocation deserves a response. Not every person who loses access to you deserves an explanation. That is how their power died. Not with revenge. Not with chaos. Not with you becoming like them. Their power died when you finally realized you were allowed to leave the cycle without asking permission. Number 2, the spiritual starvation. When toxic people lose access to your reactions, they don't just miss you. They miss the version of themselves they got to become around you. They miss feeling important because they could disturb your peace. They miss feeling powerful because one cold message, one fake apology, one sudden absence, or one disrespectful comment could pull your entire spirit into their storm. And be honest, you felt that, didn't you? You felt how they would come around only to drain you. Not to love you. Not to understand you. Not to build anything honest with you. They came around to see if they still had access. They wanted to know if they could still make your mood change, still make your hands shake, still make you reread messages, still make you question your intuition. But now the door is closed. And because the door is closed, they are starving. Not physically, spiritually, emotionally, energetically. Because the supply they used to take from you is no longer available. The warmth is gone. The attention is gone. The emotional labor is gone. The constant explaining is gone. The forgiveness they abused is gone. The open heart they kept stabbing and returning to is gone. Now they have to sit with themselves. That is the part they never prepared for. They prepared for your anger. They prepared for your tears. They prepared for your comeback. They prepared for you to break no contact, to send that paragraph, to ask why they changed, to demand closure, to beg for honesty. But they did not prepare for your absence. They did not prepare for your peace. They did not prepare for the chosen one to stop bleeding on command. So now they're restless. They check for signs of you. They wonder if you still care. They create little situations, hoping you'll notice. They may throw hints, send indirect messages, act happier than they are, or perform like they've moved on. But underneath that performance is panic, because your energy used to regulate them. Let that sink in. Your presence gave them something to feed on. Even your frustration gave them proof that they mattered. Even your pain gave them evidence that they could still reach you. But your detachment gives them nothing. No emotional meal. No spiritual access. No reaction to harvest. And this is where it gets deep. When a person survives by disturbing your spirit, your peace feels like famine to them. They don't know what to do with a quiet chosen one. They don't know how to fight someone who is not fighting. They don't know how to control someone who no longer fears being misunderstood. That is why your calm feels unbearable to them. Because they can sense that something has changed, and this time, it is not temporary. This is not you pretending to be strong while secretly waiting for them to come back correctly. This is not you giving silent treatment as a strategy to get attention. No, this is different. This is your soul withdrawing from a place that kept requiring you to abandon yourself. And when your soul withdraws, they feel the absence immediately. The room gets colder. The messages feel emptier. The games stop working. The fake confidence starts cracking. They may still act proud, but pride does not feed the spirit. Ego does not bring peace at night. Control does not comfort a person when the one heart that kept forgiving them finally stops reaching back. Now they have to look for another source, another distraction, another person to provoke, another place to dump the chaos they never healed. But here's the problem. Nobody carries your light the way you did. Nobody gives from the same depth. Nobody absorbs, forgives, prays, hopes, and tries the way a chosen one tries before they're done. So now they're spiritually hungry in a world full of noise. because the one source of pure light they relied on just shut the door. And that is not your punishment. That is their consequence. Number 3, the panic of the unbothered. Your peace bothers them because it proves they are no longer in control of your emotional world. And that is why your calm feels like an attack. Not because you did anything wrong, not because you threatened them, not because you became cruel, but because you stopped reacting to the chaos they were trained to believe would always work on you. Listen, some people only know they matter when they can disturb you. They don't know how to receive love in a healthy way. They don't know how to sit in honesty. They don't know how to build connection without control, guilt, tension, or emotional games. So when you become peaceful, stable, quiet, and unavailable for the old cycle, they don't see healing. They see rebellion. They look at your silence and think, who do they think they are? They look at your boundaries and call it arrogance. They see you not checking for them, not asking about them, not explaining yourself anymore, and suddenly they feel insulted by the very peace they kept begging you to lose. And be honest, that is exactly what happened. When you were hurt, they dismissed you. When you were crying, they acted annoyed. When you were explaining, they acted confused. When you were begging for basic respect, they acted like you were too emotional. But the moment you stopped caring in the way they were used to, suddenly they wanted to know why you changed. Plot twist. You did not change into a worse person. You changed into a person they could no longer manipulate. That is the part they cannot stand. Because when you don't fight back, they are left alone with their own demons. There is no argument to hide behind. No emotional explosion to blame. No dramatic scene they can retell to make you look unstable. No reaction they can screenshot, exaggerate, twist, or use as proof that you were the problem all along. Your stillness removes their costume. Now they have to face the truth that they were provoking a reaction out of you, then judging you for reacting. They were creating confusion, then calling you complicated. They were withholding love, then accusing you of being needy. They were crossing boundaries, then acting wounded when you finally protected yourself. And once you stop playing your assigned role, the whole script falls apart. This is why the unbothered chosen one is so dangerous to manipulation. Not dangerous in a violent way. Dangerous in a spiritual way. Dangerous because you are no longer useful to the lie. Dangerous because your nervous system is no longer available as evidence for their false story. Dangerous because your peace tells the truth without opening its mouth. Let that sink in. Your peace is testifying. Your silence is speaking. Your absence is explaining everything they thought they could hide. And now they are panicking because you are not giving them anything to work with. They can't say you're chasing them. They can't say you're obsessed. They can't say you're begging. They can't say you're disturbing their life. All they can do is sit there and feel the emptiness of their own behavior. That emptiness is loud. It follows them into quiet moments. It meets them when the distractions stop. It shows up when they realize your energy is no longer wrapped around their life. They thought your love would always be there for them to misuse. They thought your forgiveness was unlimited. They thought your empathy meant you had no exit. But now you're gone without hatred, gone without begging, gone without needing revenge, gone without needing them to admit anything. And that is what shakes them, because a chosen one who is angry can still be pulled into the fight. A chosen one who is hurt can still be tempted to explain. But a chosen one who is genuinely at peace, that chosen one has already been delivered. And once heaven delivers you from the appetite to respond, there is nothing left for them to feed on. Number 4, the boomerang effect. This is where it gets personal. The energy they kept trying to dump on you did not disappear. It returned. Every insult, every mind game, every fake accusation, every silent treatment, every little attempt to make you feel unstable, it had to go somewhere. And once you stopped absorbing it, that energy started echoing inside their own life. That is spiritual law. They wanted you anxious, but now they feel restless. They wanted you confused, but now they can't figure out why they lost access. They wanted you doubting yourself, but now they're questioning why the same tactics don't work anymore. They wanted you carrying the heaviness, but now that heaviness is sitting right back in their own chest. Listen, you were never meant to be a trash can for someone else's darkness. You were never meant to be the place where they could unload their insecurity, bitterness, jealousy, rage, or emptiness. For too long, they treated your heart like a dumping ground and then acted shocked when you finally guarded the gate. But now the gate is closed. And because the gate is closed, the mess has nowhere to go but back home. That is why their life feels louder now. Their thoughts are louder. Their irritation is louder. Their need for control is louder. Their emptiness is louder. Because the chosen one is no longer there to soften the consequences of their behavior. Before, you absorbed the shock. You carried the tension. You over-explained to keep the peace. You swallowed your pain so the room wouldn't explode. You prayed for people who were still plotting against your peace. You gave chances to people who were not changing, only studying how much more you would tolerate. But when you stepped back, the whole spiritual balance shifted. Now they have to feel what they caused. Not because you cursed them. Not because you wished evil on them. Not because you became bitter. No, they are simply meeting the natural consequence of their own energy. The boomerang came back with their name on it. And pay attention to this. They may try to act like everything is fine. They may laugh louder, post more, perform confidence, surround themselves with distractions, or pretend your absence means nothing. But performance is not peace. Noise is not healing. Pride is not protection. And pretending not to care does not erase the spiritual debt created by harming someone who genuinely loved you. That debt speaks. It speaks through sleepless nights. It speaks through strange frustration. It speaks through relationships that suddenly feel empty. It speaks through doors closing, plans delaying, and people beginning to see what you were trying to explain. It speaks when the mask slips in front of the very audience they tried to impress. Now watch this. The same confusion they planted in you starts showing up around them. People begin questioning their story. Their charm doesn't hit the same. Their control doesn't feel as smooth. Their words don't carry the same weight. Why? Because when heaven removes your covering from a situation, what was hidden starts becoming visible. And you don't have to announce it. You don't have to expose them. You don't have to fight to prove what happened. Sometimes your healing is the exposure. Sometimes your peace becomes the evidence. Sometimes the fact that you are no longer available to be blamed forces everyone to look at the person still creating chaos. Let that sink in. When you were there, they could point at your reaction. When you left, all that remained was their pattern. That is the boomerang effect. The negative energy they aimed at you circled back and found its owner. The confusion returned to the confused. The bitterness returned to the bitter. The heaviness returned to the one who kept throwing it. And now, chosen one, you are not standing in the blast zone anymore. You are standing outside the cycle, protected, quiet, healing, watching spiritual law do what your explanations never could. Number 5, the reclaiming of your throne. There comes a moment when a chosen one stops asking, "Why did they treat me like that?" and starts asking, "Why did I keep abandoning myself to survive it?" And that question right there is where your power came back. Because walking away was not weakness. It was not running. It was not being dramatic. It was you saving your own life before the cycle stole the last soft part of you. You finally realized your peace was not negotiable. Your nervous system was not community property. Your heart was not a public shelter for people who refused to heal. Your forgiveness was holy, but it was never meant to become a doorway for repeated disrespect. And listen, silence is a royal strategy. A king does not argue with every voice outside the gate. A queen does not leave the throne every time someone throws dirt at the palace. Royalty understands access. Royalty understands timing. Royalty understands that not every person deserves a seat at the table just because they're hungry for attention. That is what you reclaimed. You reclaimed your attention. You reclaimed your sleep. You reclaimed your morning peace. You reclaimed the part of you that used to check your phone with anxiety. You reclaimed the part of you that used to rehearse conversations in your head, hoping one day they would finally understand. Now you understand. Some people did not misunderstand you. They benefited from your confusion. They benefited from your guilt. They benefited from keeping you emotionally available while giving you barely enough truth to keep hoping. But that version of you is gone. The new you does not chase closure from people who created the wound. The new you does not beg for honesty from people addicted to performance. The new you does not keep reopening doors just because someone knocks with the same hand they used to hurt you. This is your throne season. Quiet, protected, clear, unavailable for chaos. And yes, they feel it. They feel the shift in your energy. They feel that your spirit no longer leans toward them. They feel that your love has been pulled back into your own life. They feel that you are not angry in the old way. You are resolved. That scares them, because anger can fade. Sadness can be manipulated. Guilt can be triggered. But resolution is different. Resolution says, I saw enough. I learned enough. I survived enough. I am not returning to the place that required me to disappear. Sit with that for a second. You did not just leave them. You returned to yourself. And that is why your silence carries authority now. It is not empty. It is not passive. It is not weakness pretending to be strength. It is the sound of a chosen one who finally remembered their crown. So let this be your confirmation. You did not lose when you detached. You were delivered. You were pulled out of a cycle that kept feeding on your reactions, your explanations, your guilt, and your compassion. And now that you are no longer available, the energy they tried to place on you is returning to its source. Keep the boundary closed, not because you hate them, but because you finally love yourself enough to stop reopening doors that God already helped you survive. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them wonder. Let them feel the silence. You are not responsible for feeding people who only felt full when you were empty. Your peace is sacred now. Your silence is protected now. Your energy is not for everyone now. And the people who took your light for granted are learning the hard way that chosen ones don't stay available forever. So keep walking. No begging, no chasing, no explaining. Let karma speak. Let heaven handle the details. Let truth do what your words never could. And remember this, when you pulled your energy back, you did not become cold. You became free. If this message spoke to your spirit, subscribe to this channel for more truth, healing, spiritual warfare, and divine justice messages. Share this with someone who needs to remember that silence is not weakness. It is protection. And comment below, I pulled my energy back and I choose peace.